Howdy do, guys. So this is part 5 of our Gameolgy series on survival horror. If you haven't checked out the first 4 parts of the series, be sure to check that out before checking out this part. So in our last section, we talked about some of the pitfalls that needed to be avoided with horror. You know, with the past 2 sections of Gameology, we've basically just been discussing how you actually put the fear in the player to actually achieve the horror aspect of survival horror. So what we're going to be looking at today is the other aspect of that, and that is the survival aspects of a survival horror game. And on that front, it really comes down to the resource management and the combat. So we're going to start with the resource management. And before we get into that, what we need to discuss is inventory systems in video games. So to illustrate the difference between an inventory system in any other game versus the inventory system in a survival horror game, I have 2 examples to show you guys. First off, let's look at an inventory screen from Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So you look at the inventory screen here, and this is well into the game, so you've got all the main power-ups, items, and everything. And as you can see, you can essentially carry all of it with you, and while you can only equip certain weapons to you at any time, swapping them out is as simple as just opening up the pause menu and, re-equipping what you need. So that's what an inventory system will look like in an RPG, a standard survival game, not necessarily a survival horror game or an adventure game like Zelda. Now let's compare that to an inventory screen from Resident Evil. As you can see, there is significantly less here. So these 8 inventory slots, that's about all you're getting in the entire game, and you probably aren't even going to start with that. So this is the main differentiator from a standard inventory system in a survival horror game. In a standard game, you can carry just about anything you obtain throughout the adventure with you at all times, but in a survival horror game, you can only carry so much with you at once, and that is actually a very important aspect of survival horror. And the reason it's so vital is because when you can carry everything with you at once, you kind of lose the horror because you feel like you are prepared for anything that the game can throw at you. So again, in Legend of Zelda, let's say you encounter an enemy that can't be killed with a sword or anything like that. Dealing with it is very simple. All you gotta do is just, swap to bombs or whatever other weapon you have, and then you just take out whatever's in front of you. But in Resident Evil, there's no guarantee that you'll be able to do that because you can't carry everything with you at once. The thing about Resident Evil is a big part of the game is planning ahead, trying to be prepared for what's coming, but also not being able to be prepared for anything because you never know what's going to be around that next corner or through that next door. So you might be able to carry 1 or 2 weapons. You might be able to carry a pistol. You might be able to carry a shotgun if you need a little extra firepower. You'll need ammo for those 2 weapons, so that's 2 more inventory slots filled up right there. So right away, that is 8 item. That is 4 item slots that have already been filled up. So you only have half your inventory left, so it might also be wise to carry some health items with you. And also you want to leave some space for extra ammo, maybe some inventory items and empty space in case you come across something that you want to pick up and later deposit in your resource bin. These are the kind of decisions that you want to be making in a proper survival horror game. And the other thing that is important to have in regards to your inventory system is also the nature of your resources. So again, going back to Legend of Zelda, you notice that some of these items have, an ammo count on them. So you can only use them so much before you run dry and you have to get more ammunition for them. Now, that's the same in Resident Evil. You see that some of these items here have a number on them, again, emphasizing an ammo count. But the difference in Resident Evil versus in Legend of Zelda is if you start to run dry on any of these resources, it is not hard to go back and get any of that stuff. You typically just have to backtrack to an area where there's like some pots lined up against the wall. You break them open a few times, and you walk out the door again, you come back, the jars are there, you break them open again, and you just keep doing that until your resources are filled. In between dungeons, there are usually vendors that can fill you up too. It is not hard to stay supplied in The Legend of Zelda. That is not a luxury that you have in Resident Evil. In Resident Evil, resources are scarce, so while it might look like I have a lot of ammo here, I mean 181 bullets, holy crap, that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you'll be able to replenish those rounds. If you've ever played a Resident Evil game, or Silent Hill, or any good survival horror game, you'd be hard-pressed to remember a time where you had more than triple digits of ammunition, let alone more than 50, and that's because they very intentionally only give the player so much. The idea is that you happen to scrape by with what is available to the player, so ammo, that's why you don't want to just be throwing it away if you encounter a zombie or something. You want to, you know, really think about it before you put a few holes in that zombie's head, take it out. Health items, very same way. You don't want to be wasting them. In a lot of survival horror games, like if your character is injured, it's not uncommon for players to just let them remain injured and then save their health items for when their life bar drops to as low as it'll get. That way they can use a bigger health item to replenish all that damage instead of just wasting that big health item on, you know, just a little bit of damage. Those are the two main ones that you tend to think about in survival horror games, but a lot of survival horror games have come up with other really interesting resources that you have to manage. One that I really have always enjoyed in Resident Evil are the ink ribbons, which are essentially required to save the game. Just the fact that you don't have the luxury of being able to backtrack to a save room and save your progress every time you find something new. It definitely continues to put you on edge, and like nothing is more horrifying than getting to a boss, realizing that you've been playing for an hour, and if you die at this very moment, you're going to have to go back and redo all of that again. The Resident Evil 2 remake, it also introduced this idea where certain zombies would actually get back up. The corpses don't disappear if you leave them there for too long. They become what are known as the Crimson Hedge, which are faster and stronger and tougher to deal with. So you had this other item where you had kerosene that you would pick up, and you would light the zombies on fire to destroy the corpses. So if it's a high traffic area, you probably want to go deal with those corpses if you don't want them getting back up and coming for your head. And there are tons of other unique forms of resource management that I can think of in a survival horror game, but those are the two important things you need to have for this aspect of survival horror. You have to have that limited inventory space, and you have to have the scarce resources. This is the survival aspect of a survival horror game. Managing these resources, planning ahead, trying to prepare, but, you know, just being unsure of what's ahead, and just knowing full well that whatever you have is barely enough to scrape by, and that's only if you weren't careless with it in the first place. All that being said, there are also some pitfalls that you can fall into with resource management as well, and we're going to talk about those next time on Gameology. I'll see you guys then.